The low hum of Haley's SUV was the only sound as she and Marcus rolled down a quiet stretch of suburban road. It had been 30 days since the courtroom echoed with truths that neither of them could forget. Truths that tore down walls Haley had spent a lifetime building. Marcus, now 17, had stood up and said the thing she feared most. That he'd felt unwanted from the moment he could form memories. And now she was driving him home. The silence between them wasn't peaceful. It was thick, heavy, filled with all the things they couldn't say yet. Haley glanced over. Marcus sat stiffly, eyes glued to the window, his chin resting in his palm. His face didn't give away a thing. "You doing okay?" she asked, her hands tightening slightly on the steering wheel. He shrugged without looking at her. "Yeah, I guess." Haley wanted to say more, to say everything, but each word felt like it came with the risk of shattering this fragile beginning, the kind where one wrong tone could send him packing. She didn't know how to hold something this breakable. They pulled into the driveway. The house looked as polished and proper as it always had. 2 stories tall, front lawn edged with flower beds trimmed with almost clinical perfection. Marcus's eyes scanned it, and Haley saw it. That slight hardening in his jaw, that flicker of discomfort. She caught her breath. "I know it's a lot," she said, voice softer than before. Marcus didn't respond. He opened the car door, backpack slung over one shoulder, and followed her to the front steps. Haley unlocked the door and stepped inside, then turned back toward him with a tentative smile. "Welcome home." Marcus stepped in. His sneakers squeaked against the hardwood. The living room greeted him like a museum, leather furniture that looked like it had never been sat in, shelves of hardcovers in pristine rows, abstract art framed with metallic edges. The whole place felt expensive, off limits, like it had been staged for a catalog shoot, not lived in. Haley stood nearby, watching. Her heart was already sinking. "I know it's not what you're used to," she said gently, "but I want you to feel at home here. Really, if there's anything you need, just let me know, okay?" He gave a small nod but said nothing. Dropping his backpack next to the couch, he stood there, awkward, like someone caught between sets in a play. No script, no direction. That night, Haley made spaghetti and garlic bread. It was simple, warm, nostalgic, comfort food. She lit a small candle on the dining table, trying to create some kind of softness, something human. When she called him for dinner, Marcus appeared in the doorway, still wearing the same hoodie, hands jammed into his pockets. He sat across from her and stared down at his plate. "This was my favorite meal when I was your age," Haley said, trying to sound casual. "I used to beg my mom to make it once a week." Marcus glanced up for a second, unreadable, then looked down again. "Thanks," he mumbled. They ate in silence, the kind that made every clink of a fork feel 10 times louder than it should. Haley felt the tension gathering around them like fog. Every minute that passed, the weight of it pressed harder against her chest. Finally, she put her fork down. "Marcus," she began, her voice a little shaky, "I know all this is new, and I don't want to push too hard, but I really want to get to know you. I want to understand what you've been through, what you like, what makes you happy." He froze, his fork halfway to his mouth, then slowly lowered it. His shoulders tensed. "You want to know what makes me happy?" His voice was edged with bitterness. "Try not being abandoned." The words hit her like a punch to the ribs. Before she could say anything, he kept going, his voice rising. "You think making dinner and lighting a candle is going to fix years of silence? You think this house makes up for everything?" "I don't," Haley said quickly, her voice shaking. "I don't expect that at all. I want to try. If you'll let me." Marcus pushed his chair back hard. The legs scraped against the wood. "I don't even know why I'm here," he muttered. "I don't belong in this house. I don't belong in your life." He grabbed his backpack and left the dining room without looking back. The door didn't slam, but it clicked shut with finality. Haley sat there, staring at his untouched plate. Her throat burned as tears welled up, blurring the flickering candlelight. For a long time, she didn't move, just kept hearing his voice echo in her mind. "You think this fixes everything? I don't belong here." She had known this would be hard. She'd prepared herself for walls, for anger, but nothing could have prepared her for the raw ache in his voice. Eventually she got up, moved like someone underwater, cleared the plates, scraped his spaghetti into the trash, blew out the candle. As she turned off the kitchen light, she made a quiet vow to herself. No matter how many times he pulled away, no matter how painful it got, she was staying. She wasn't walking out again. Upstairs, Marcus sat on the edge of the guest bed, his backpack still on his lap. The room looked like something out of a hotel brochure. Soft bedding, wide windows, tidy shelves. But to him it felt like nothing. Cold, empty. He pulled out his phone, scrolled to a familiar contact, Tanya, his old caseworker. She'd been the only adult who had ever really felt safe. Part of him wanted to call her, tell her he'd made a mistake, that this was all too fake, too clean, too late. But as he sat there staring at her name on the screen, another thought crept in, a whisper, one he wasn't ready to say out loud. Maybe, maybe Haley meant it. Maybe she really did care. But still, he couldn't let his guard down. Not yet. He lay back on the bed, eyes on the ceiling, and for the first time in weeks, tears slipped down his cheeks. Not from rage, but from something deeper. Something he didn't know how to name. If any of this is landing with you, feel free to like, share it with someone who'd get it, and let me know what you're thinking in the comments. Morning light spilled into the kitchen, soft and pale, but the air inside the house felt heavier than the night before. Haley sat at the table, fingers curled around a mug of coffee that had long gone cold. She hadn't slept much. Her mind kept circling back to Marcus's voice. Low, sharp, broken. I don't belong in this house. She stared at the doorway, listening for any sign that he'd come down from the guest room. Footsteps, creaking floorboards, anything. But the silence stretched on. When he finally appeared, it startled her. Same hoodie, same guarded face. He moved toward the fridge without a word, pulled out a carton of orange juice, poured it into a glass, sat down across from her like he was in a stranger's kitchen. Haley smiled gently. Good morning? Marcus didn't answer, just sipped the juice slowly, eyes drifting to the window like he wished he were anywhere else. She cleared her throat, forcing herself to speak. I was thinking, maybe we could do something today, just the two of us. He raised an eyebrow, suspicious. Like what? She tried to keep her tone light. There's a basketball court at the park down the street. Thought we could shoot around a little. No pressure. Marcus snorted. A hint of a smirk tugged at his mouth. You play basketball? Haley chuckled, easing a little. Back in college. I wasn't half bad, actually. The smirk disappeared, and the wall went back up. I'm not really in the mood. Her heart dropped, but she nodded. That's okay. I just wanted to ask. If you change your mind, let me know. He didn't reply, just stared out the window, lost in thought. Moments passed. Then with a soft scrape of the chair legs, he stood up, reached for his hoodie. I'm going to go for a walk. Haley rose instinctively. Where are you going? Do you want me to drive you? He shook his head, not meeting her eyes. I just need some space. She opened her mouth to protest, but stopped herself. Okay, just to be safe, and let me know if you need anything. He nodded once. Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him. Outside, Marcus wandered the streets aimlessly. The neighborhood looked like a magazine spread. Perfect lawns, clean sidewalks, cars that probably got detailed every week. It all felt fake, unreachable. Nothing about it resembled the world he'd grown up in. House after house blurred past. Too big, too clean, too quiet. He shoved his hands deeper into his pockets, thoughts drifting to the string of foster homes he'd lived in. Tiny places. Cracked tile, stained couches, people who said they cared, but never stuck around long enough to prove it. Now he was supposed to believe that Haley wanted him in her life, that this woman who hadn't written or called or shown up for 17 years suddenly wanted to be his mom. How was he supposed to trust that? Back at the house, Haley hadn't moved from the kitchen table. She stared at the spot where Marcus had been sitting. Every attempt she made felt like trying to grasp water. He slipped through her fingers no matter what she said. Finally, she reached for her phone, scrolled through her contacts and paused on a name that felt safe. Natalie. After a few rings, Natalie's warm voice came through the line. Haley? Haley exhaled shakily. Hey, how's it going? Not great, she admitted. I feel like I'm failing him. He's so angry and I don't blame him, but I don't know how to reach him. Natalie's voice softened. You're not supposed to fix it overnight. Marcus has been through more than most people ever will. And that kind of pain, it doesn't just fade because someone makes a spaghetti. I know, Haley whispered, but I keep second-guessing everything. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I already did? You didn't, Natalie said firmly. The fact that you care, that you're trying, that means more to him than he'll ever admit. He's testing you, seeing if you'll walk away like the rest did. Haley closed her eyes, nodding. I just want him to believe that I'm not going anywhere. He will, Natalie said. Eventually. But you have to give him time to come to that truth on his own. You show up, again and again. That's how trust is built. When they hung up, Haley sat in the silence for a moment, then stood, a quiet steel settling into her chest. No matter how long it took, she wasn't giving up on him. A few hours later, the front door creaked open. Marcus stepped inside cautiously, like he expected confrontation. But Haley was curled up on the couch, a book in her hands, and she didn't say anything right away. Just looked up and offered a small smile. Hey, she said softly. How was your walk? He shrugged. It was fine, she nodded. Dinner's in the fridge if you're hungry. No pressure. Marcus hesitated. Something about her tone. It wasn't pushy. It wasn't demanding. It felt safe. He gave a quick glance in her direction, then disappeared up the stairs without a word. But for the first time, he didn't feel like running. The next few days passed in slow, quiet waves. The rhythm between them stayed cautious. He kept to himself, stayed upstairs most of the time, wandered the neighborhood alone. But he started showing up to dinner, sitting through meals in silence, not rushing out the second his plate was empty. Haley watched each shift like a tiny miracle. She didn't press, didn't overreach, just tried to be consistent, steady, present. And Marcus, for all his guarded edges, was watching too. Every word she didn't say, every time she didn't push, he was taking notes, looking for cracks, waiting to see if she'd break her promise. One afternoon, she decided to take a chance. She knocked on his door lightly. Marcus? There was a pause, then a quiet, yeah? I was cleaning out the garage earlier and found something. She opened the door, holding up a dusty basketball. Thought maybe you'd want to shoot some hoops, if you're up for it. He looked at the ball, then at her. She braced herself for rejection, but he set his notebook aside and stood. Sure, he said. Why not? And that one word, sure, felt like the smallest, bravest beginning in the world. The park was nearly empty when they got there. Late afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the cracked pavement, and the basketball hoop stood alone beneath a cloudless sky. Marcus dribbled slowly, testing the grip on the old ball Haley had found in the garage. His movements were deliberate, cautious, like he was warming up for something more than just a game. Haley stood a few feet away, arms crossed, watching with quiet hope. You've got a good handle, she said after a minute. Did you play a lot? Marcus gave a slight nod. Sometimes when I wasn't switching homes every few months. The words landed sharp. Haley winced but kept her voice steady. Well, let's see what you got. Show me your best shot. He raised an eyebrow, a flicker of amusement creeping in. You sure about that? You're kinda old. Haley laughed, the sound more real than anything that had come out of her in days. Careful, I might surprise you. Marcus shrugged, dribbled a few steps back, and took a shot. The ball arced high, smooth and clean, and swished straight through the net. Haley clapped once. Nice. He passed her the ball, and she caught it with more confidence than she felt. She squared her shoulders, took aim, and let it fly. The ball bounced off the rim with a loud clunk and rolled away. Marcus grinned. You're definitely rusty. Haley jogged after the ball, shaking her head. Give me a break. I haven't played since college. They played for almost an hour, shooting, rebounding, teasing each other just enough to take the edge off. Marcus wasn't smiling constantly, but it was there, small, subtle, showing up in flashes like sunlight through tree branches. Haley didn't care that she missed more shots than she made. All that mattered was that he was here, laughing, moving, sharing space with her. When they finally sat on the edge of the court, water bottles in hand, sweat beading on their foreheads, the silence felt different. Not tense, not uncomfortable, just, quiet. "You're good at this," Haley said, glancing sideways at him. "You ever think about playing for a team again?" He shrugged. "I used to like it, but it doesn't really feel the same anymore." "Why not?" He peeled the label off his water bottle, eyes fixed on it. "When you move all the time, it's hard to get attached to stuff. To people. You never know if you'll still be there tomorrow." Her chest tightened. She reached out, gently resting a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to worry about that now. You're not going anywhere." I promise Marcus didn't pull away, but he didn't look at her either. "You say that now. I say it because I mean it." He turned to her then. His expression was conflicted, open and guarded all at once. "I don't know if I believe that yet." "That's okay," Haley said quietly. "You don't have to believe it today. Just let me keep showing up. Let me earn it." He didn't say anything for a long time. Then finally a faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "We'll see," he said, his tone teasing, but not unkind. Back at the house, Marcus surprised her by sitting on the living room couch instead of disappearing into the guest room. He didn't talk much, just scrolled through his phone while she read a book nearby. But the silence was different now. It wasn't distance. It was presence. "Hey, Judge," he said suddenly, using the nickname he'd given her, half teasing, half true. She looked up, eyebrow raised. "Yeah? Thanks for today. It was fun." Haley smiled, heart swelling with quiet relief. "You're welcome. Anytime." It wasn't much, but in that moment, it felt like everything. The week that followed was filled with small shifts. Marcus still kept most of his guard up, but the edges were softening. He came down for dinner without being asked. He lingered in the living room after meals. He even helped unload the dishwasher once, without being prompted. They didn't talk about the past. Not yet. But the silence between them started to feel like space being built for something. Something real. Then one evening, while Haley was sorting through old boxes in her study, she found it. A small, battered envelope, yellowed at the edges, tucked inside a manila folder labeled Marcus, Private. Her breath caught. She opened it slowly. Inside was a letter, folded neatly. The handwriting was hers, a little shakier than she remembered. She read the first line and had to sit down. It was a letter she'd written 17 years ago. Meant for Marcus. Meant to explain everything. Why she gave him up. Why she thought it was best. Why she never stopped thinking about him. She'd written it when he was just 2 years old, and she never sent it. Fear had stopped her. Guilt. Shame. The belief that maybe staying away was the only kindness she had left to give. But now, reading those words, she realized the mistake. He had needed to know, and he never got the chance. The next morning, Marcus was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through his phone. Haley sat across from him, the envelope clutched tightly in her hand. "There's something I want to show you," she said. He looked up slowly, wary. "What is it?" She hesitated. Her throat felt dry. "It's something I wrote a long time ago. For you." She slid the envelope across the table. Marcus picked it up, eyebrows narrowing. He unfolded the letter carefully. As he read, his expression changed. Confusion, disbelief, sadness, pain. The letter said, "Dear Marcus, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I need to say it anyway. Giving you up was the hardest thing I've ever done. Not a day goes by that I don't think about you, wondering if you're safe, if you're happy, if you know how much I love you. I was young and scared, and I thought I was doing what was best. I hope someday you'll understand. You are not a mistake. You are my greatest gift, and I will always carry you in my heart. Love, Mom." Mama, when he finished, he looked up. His eyes were glassy, jaw tight. "Why didn't you send this?" Haley's hands twisted in her lap. "I was scared. I thought it might hurt more than help. I thought maybe you wouldn't want to hear from me." Marcus stared at the letter, quiet. Then he said, "You could have tried." "I know," she whispered, "and I'll regret not sending it for the rest of my life. But I'm here now, and I want to make things right." He folded the letter, tucked it back in the envelope. His voice was low, trembling. "You wrote this when I was 2?" "Yes." "Did you ever think about me after that?" She reached across the table, her hand trembling. "Every day," she said. "Every single day." For a moment, Marcus didn't speak, but for the first time, he didn't pull away. And somewhere in the silence, something old began to crack open. Later that night, Marcus sat on the edge of his bed, the letter still in his hands. The room was dark except for the street light filtering through the window blinds. He hadn't turned on the lamp. Didn't need to. He'd already read the letter 3 times, and each word had branded itself into his memory. He didn't know what to feel. Anger and sadness kept tugging at each other, like 2 ropes in opposite hands. Part of him wanted to throw the letter away. Another part wanted to press it against his chest and believe every word of it was true. "You are my greatest gift." He blinked, hard, as if trying to clear something from his eyes. But the sting didn't go away. Downstairs, the house was silent. Haley hadn't knocked. She hadn't pushed. Just left him alone after giving him the letter, trusting that he'd come to her when he was ready. He didn't know if he ever would be. But for the first time, he wanted to try. The next morning, Haley was already at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a warm mug. She didn't expect him to come down so early. She didn't expect what came next at all. Marcus walked in slowly, still in his pajamas, hair messy from sleep. He was holding the letter, folded neatly in his fingers. He didn't say anything right away. Just sat across from her and placed the envelope gently on the table. Haley looked up, cautious but hopeful. "I read it again," Marcus said quietly. His fingers tapped the edge of the envelope. "It's hard," she nodded. "I know. I feel 2 things at the same time when I read it," he said. "Part of me wants to believe you, that you really did care, that you always did." He paused, his voice tight. "But the other part still feels angry." Haley leaned in slightly. "Because if I cared, why didn't I come back?" Marcus nodded, his shoulders slumping. "Yeah. Why didn't you fight for me?" The question hit hard, but she didn't flinch. She took a breath and answered with everything she had. "I should have," she said. "I thought I was protecting you. I told myself that staying away would give you a better chance, that I was the mistake, and you deserve better. But I was wrong." Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed steady. "I was scared. I let my shame decide for me, and I've regretted it every single day." Marcus looked down at the table, tracing a circle into the wood grain with his finger. "I don't know if I can forgive you," he whispered. "I understand," Haley said softly, "but I'm still here, and I'll keep being here, however long it takes." For a long moment they sat in silence, the letter between them. Not a fix, not a finish, but something like a fragile start. That afternoon, Haley gently asked if he wanted to get out of the house for a bit. She kept her voice light, not wanting to push. "There's a community center nearby," she said. "Basketball courts, art rooms, some kids your age hang out there. Just thought it might be something to check out." Marcus hesitated. His instinct was to say no, but instead he shrugged. "Maybe." It was the closest thing to a yes she'd heard in days. The community center buzzed with quiet energy. Kids ran back and forth across the court, some working on jump shots, others just goofing around. The gym smelled like sweat and floor polish, and something like normal. Marcus's face lit up when he saw the basketball court. His steps quickened before Haley even said anything. "Go ahead," she smiled. "I'll be on the bleachers." He didn't answer, just nodded and jogged onto the court, slipping seamlessly into a pickup game with a group of teens around his age. His movements were fluid, instinctual. There was a calm that settled over his shoulders as soon as the ball touched his hands. Haley watched from the sideline, heart full, hands clenched tightly in her lap. She wasn't the one healing him. The game was. The court. The movement. The rhythm of something that made sense in a way relationships didn't yet. A woman sat beside her on the bleachers. She looked familiar with the place, comfortable in a way Haley wasn't yet. "First time here?" the woman asked. Haley nodded. Yeah, my son, kind of new to everything. The woman smiled. That's great. I'm Mara. I help run the mentorship program here. A lot of the kids come from tough situations. We pair them with mentors, older players, coaches. Sometimes it makes a huge difference. Haley leaned in. Really, that sounds amazing. We've seen some real success stories, Mara said. They just need someone to show up, someone who doesn't quit. Haley glanced back at Marcus. He had just landed a clean jumper. The other boys gave him a few nods of approval. He didn't smile, but he didn't shrink either. He belonged. When the game ended, he walked over to her, wiping sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. You were watching? He asked, almost like he was embarrassed. Of course, and she said, you're really good. He shrugged, trying not to look too pleased. It's just basketball. She smiled. Mara told me about a program here for kids who like the game. They pair you with mentors, help with skills, maybe even get you noticed by school teams. Marcus looked thoughtful. Yeah? Yeah, no pressure, she added. But if you're interested, we could ask more. He nodded slowly. Maybe. I mean, maybe that'd be cool. Later that evening, they sat side by side on the couch. A movie played on the TV, neither of them really watching. Marcus scrolled through his phone. Haley sipped her tea. The silence between them had changed again. Now it felt lived in, like it had room to breathe. Haley looked over at him. I'm proud of you, she said gently, for being open today. I know it's not easy. Marcus didn't look at her, but his shoulders relaxed. Thanks, he said. Then after a pause, I didn't think I'd feel anything after that letter. But I did. I still do. Haley reached for the blanket and handed it to him without a word. For the first time, he didn't hesitate to take it. And for the first time since he walked through her door, he looked like maybe, just maybe, he didn't want to walk back out. The next morning was quiet, but not in the way it used to be. Haley was already downstairs, flipping pancakes in the kitchen, the smell of vanilla and maple drifting through the air. She wasn't expecting Marcus to come down early, but when she heard his footsteps, she didn't jump or say anything right away. She just flipped the next pancake, calm, steady. Marcus shuffled into the room, hoodie half-zipped, hair still a little wild. He moved slower today, like his walls weren't holding him up as tightly. You hungry? Haley asked, her voice casual. He nodded. A little. She slid a warm plate in front of him. Pancakes, scrambled eggs, a few strawberries on the side. Nothing fancy, just real. He sat and started eating without saying much. But that was okay. He was here. They didn't talk about the letter. They didn't talk about the community center. They didn't talk about anything that might feel too big before noon. After breakfast, Haley rinsed the dishes, then dried her hands on a towel. I was thinking, she said gently, maybe later we could go by the center again. Just to ask about the mentorship program, if you're still up for it. Marcus shrugged, but it wasn't dismissive. Yeah, I guess I'd be okay with that. She smiled softly, hiding the relief behind the kitchen counter. That afternoon, they returned to the community center. Mara greeted them like old friends. She introduced Marcus to one of the older players who ran drills with kids after school. A guy named Dante, tall, lean, easy smile. Within minutes, Marcus was out on the court with him, going through layups and footwork. Focused, engaged. Haley watched from the bleachers again, hands folded tightly in her lap. She wasn't just watching basketball. She was watching her son, still guarded, still cautious, but beginning to lean into something new. After practice, Marcus jogged back over to her, cheeks flushed, a light sweat on his brow. That was actually cool, he said. Dante knows what he's doing. You looked great out there, Haley said. He cracked the barest smile. Still rusty, but yeah, it felt good. She hesitated. You want to come back tomorrow? He looked over his shoulder toward the court, then back at her. Yeah, I think so. That evening, they sat in the living room again, this time watching an actual movie. Marcus picked it, a basketball documentary he'd heard about but never seen. They didn't say much during it, but halfway through he asked her what teams she used to play against in college. She told him stories, nothing dramatic, just late-night practices, Bus rides with busted air conditioning, the times she made a buzzer beater and got carried off the court. He listened, really listened. When the movie ended, he didn't stand up right away. "You miss it?" he asked. She thought for a second. "Sometimes, I miss being part of a team, the rhythm, knowing someone's got your back, even when the game's a mess." He nodded like he understood, because maybe he did. The next few days fell into a rhythm that didn't feel forced. Breakfast together, then a trip to the center, followed by dinner, maybe a movie, maybe just silence. And the silence started to feel warm, familiar, like it wasn't what separated them anymore, but what gave them room to grow. Haley still second-guessed herself sometimes, still replayed their first few nights like old film reels she couldn't quite stop. But the more she focused on now, the less power those moments had. One night, while she was organizing old files in her study, Marcus knocked on the door. "Hey," he said, "you got a second?" She set the folder down. "Of course." He walked in holding the letter again. "I've been reading it," he said. "Not every day, but enough." She stood still, waiting. "I don't think I'm ready to forgive you," he said, voice steady. "But I want to be." Her eyes welled, but she didn't rush toward him, didn't fill the silence. "I keep thinking about what you wrote," he continued, "about how you thought I deserved better. And I get that, I do. But sometimes I wonder if you even thought you could be that better thing." Haley's throat tightened. "I didn't," she admitted. "I was so sure I'd already failed you that I didn't think I deserved to try again." He looked down at the envelope. "But you're trying now." She nodded. "Every day." He stood for a long moment, then sat across from her. "I don't want to just be some kid in your house," he said. "I don't want to be a guest." "You're not," she said immediately. "You never were." They didn't hug, didn't need to. Something else passed between them. Quiet, honest, real. The next day, Mara invited them both to a community dinner at the center. Tables were filled with kids and mentors, art projects on display, music playing low over speakers. Marcus helped serve food, even laughed at something one of the volunteers said. Haley caught it, that laugh, and held on to it. She chatted with Mara while Marcus played cards with two younger boys at a nearby table. "He's settling in," Mara said, nodding toward him. "It's not just basketball. He's starting to trust this place, starting to trust himself." Haley smiled. "He's brave. Braver than I ever was." Mara looked at her. "You're here. That counts for more than you think." On the drive home, Marcus stared out the window, then broke the silence. "You remember that first night, when I said I didn't belong in your house?" Haley glanced at him. "Yeah, I remember." He nodded slowly. "I think I was wrong." She gripped the wheel just a little tighter. "You're welcome here," she said softly. "Always." He didn't answer, but he didn't look away either. And in the reflection of the window, she saw it, his expression softening. Just enough. A crack in the wall. The beginning of something that looked a lot like